Hey, I'm Nancy Cavey, National ERISA and Individual Disability Attorney. Welcome to Winning Isn't Easy. Before we get started today, I've got to give you a legal disclaimer. This podcast isn't legal advice. The Florida Bar Association tells me that I've got to say this. Now that I've said it, nothing is ever going to prevent me from giving you an easy to understand overview of the disability insurance world, the games that disability carriers play, and what you need to know to get the disability benefits you deserve. So off we go. Today, I'm going to be talking about functional capacity evaluations and the impact the results of an FCE can have on your disability insurance claim. There are three specific topics I'm going to be talking about. First, the answers to the 8 most commonly asked questions about a disability insurance company's functional capacity evaluation test. 2, what are the 5 things that happen during a disability insurance company functional capacity evaluation? And the story of an executive sous chef with osteomyelitis who was wrongfully denied his long-term disability benefits by Hartford based on their functional capacity evaluation. Let's take a break for a moment before we get started with this week's episode.
Have you been robbed of your peace of mind from your disability insurance carrier? You owe it to yourself to get a copy of Robbed of Your Peace of Mind, which provides you with everything you need to know about the long-term disability claim process. Request your free copy of the book at caveylaw.com today.
Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. You ready to get started? I am. I want to talk about the answers to the 8 most commonly asked questions about disability insurance companies' functional capacity evaluation test. Well, when you applied for your disability insurance benefits, you probably didn't know that you have the burden to prove that you meet the policy definition of disability. There unfortunately isn't any uniform definition of disability, but you normally will have to prove during the first 2 years that you're unable to perform the material and substantial duties of your own occupation, as that term is defined by your policy. Now, after 2 years, the standard of disability generally changes from an inability to perform your own occupation to an inability to perform any occupation. Now, regardless of whether you're at the ONOC or the ENEOC stage of a disability claim, your physical abilities are always at question. The disability carrier may schedule you for what's called a functional capacity evaluation, an FCE, to determine how long you can sit, stand, walk, bend, stoop, how often you need to change positions, and even how much you can lift. This functional capacity evaluation will determine your physical abilities through a series of standardized tests to objectively evaluate your abilities, instead of relying on your physician's opinions about your restrictions and limitations. The results of the FCE can make or break your disability insurance claim. So I get 8 commonly asked questions about the disability carrier's FCE, and I'm going to give you not only the questions, but the answers. 1, does the disability insurance carrier company have a right to make you undergo a functional capacity evaluation? The answer is going to start with your disability policy. And we need to see what it says about the right to a physical examination, an independent medical evaluation, or a functional capacity evaluation. Not all policies will give the disability carrier the right to a functional capacity evaluation. And if you have any questions about whether your carrier has the right to have you undergo an FCE, you should be calling an experienced ERISA disability attorney and having them review the policy and giving you an answer. Now, as long as the FCE request is granted by the terms of your policy, and it's a reasonable request, you have to participate in that examination. Now, on the other hand, if the FCE is scheduled to take place hours away from your home, you've recently had surgery, or there are other extenuating reasons, then you might not have to undergo that functional capacity evaluation. Once again, I think you should be reaching out to an experienced ERISA disability attorney. Tell them your concerns and get their opinion about whether your personal circumstances would dictate whether or not you should attend the functional capacity evaluation. 2, how should I prepare for my functional capacity evaluation? Now, I'm going to answer this in a way that you may think is strange. But if you are scheduled to have an FCE, I want you to go get your own FCE. to be done several days prior to the carrier's functional capacity evaluation. Why? I never trust that the disability carrier's FCE is going to be accurate, and more often than not, is going to be done by a biased medical provider, a physical therapist who knows where their money comes from. And it's not from you, it's from the disability carrier. Now, do you have to bring your medical records to the FCE, or what other preparations should you be doing? Well, I would say to you that you don't need to bring your records to the functional capacity evaluation. In fact, I would not bring those records to the FCE. If the carrier didn't supply the records to the physical therapist or occupational therapist, too bad, so sad. But I do think that you should bring your necessary medications and take your medications as scheduled. If your doctor has you using an assistive device, like a brace or a cane, bring it and use it. Guess what? The disability carrier's FCE provider may actually be looking out the window to see how you park your car, how you get out of your car, how you walk into the facility, how you walk and function prior to the FCE, after the FCE, and watch you walk back to your vehicle. So make sure that you are using the device, using it consistently, and that you aren't exaggerating. Now, one of the questions I get is, should I be prepared for surveillance? And the answer is absolutely. Surveillance is a common tool that disability carriers will use to discredit disabled policyholders' complaints of dysfunction. And you can reasonably anticipate that they're going to have surveillance on you a couple days before the FCE, the day of the FCE, and the day after the FCE. You don't want to be the star in surveillance that shows you limping and gimping into the FCE, and then as you walk out, throwing that cane into the trunk and walking normally. Why do I say that? Because I've seen it. Question number 4, what should I wear? Well, wear comfortable clothes and wear tennis shoes. Leave all your jewelry, your rings, your watches, all sorts of that stuff at home. This is not a fashion show. This is a physical examination. And as I said, bring your prescribed cane, braces, or other medical devices and use them as you would use them at your home. The 5th question, should I fill out any paperwork? I have pretty strong opinions about this, and my opinions may disagree with other ERISA disability attorneys. But I think that other than filling out identifying paperwork, you shouldn't be filling out any paperwork, particularly if that paperwork asks questions about your activities of daily living, your functionality, the location of your pain or dysfunction, asks you questions about occupational duties, or even ask you to take pain questionnaire testing. Look, the physical therapist who's performing the FCE is reporting their observations to the carrier, and they're looking for discrepancies between what you put on your activity of daily living forms, what you told the doctors, what you told them in the forms that you filled out, and what you tell them during the course of the functional capacity evaluation. So in my view, filling out forms just gives them more ammunition with which to deny your claim. Number 6, can I take a break during the functional capacity evaluation? Now, typically, you're going to be allowed to have a bathroom break and a lunch break. But if you need to rest in between doing these functional activities, tell them that you need a break. Now, don't exaggerate your need to break because they will report that. If they refuse to take a break, as far as I'm concerned, you should be telling them again that you need a break. If they refuse, then as far as I'm concerned, the FCE is over and you should be leaving. I tried to videotape FCEs. That's not always possible. And if you get into a sort of an altercation with the therapist about the FCE, whip out your phone, turn on your recorder, and try to record it. If they say you can't, you're out of there, baby. All right. Number 7, what should you do if you're asked to do tests that are outside of your restrictions and limitations as assigned by your physician? My advice is pretty simple. Follow your doctor's restrictions and limitations. Tell your FCE provider that your doctor has restricted you from doing X, Y, and Z, and you're not going to deviate from those restrictions and limitations. The therapist should be able to adjust the test or have you skip parts of the test. However, you need to be aware that the therapist is also going to be reporting whether or not you're cooperating and giving full effort. So give your full effort, but just don't do any tests that are outside of your restrictions and limitations. Number 8, what should you do if you can't complete the test? Now, there's a trap here. By the terms of your disability policy, you're required to cooperate with the FCE, and you should always, always, always give your best efforts. If you can't safely perform a task, or the task is outside of the restrictions and limitations assigned by your doctor, you should tell the therapist that you're having trouble and stop. As I've said, they should be willing to adjust the test or skip it entirely. If that doesn't happen, remember, leave. But you have a duty to cooperate. So we want to make sure that you appear cooperative, that you are cooperative, and that you adequately and fully comply with their instructions about how to perform the test. Again, that's one of the reasons why I want you to have your own functional capacity evaluation several days prior to the disability carrier's FCE. I have FCE providers that I trust who will do an honest job of determining your restrictions and limitations, will understand your restrictions, and won't ask you to do something outside of your reported restrictions and limitations. And it's always good to have that FCE done prior to the carrier's FCE so that ultimately your FCE provider can comment on the results of the disability insurance carrier's FCE. Got it? 8 questions, 8 answers. In the next segment, I'm going to talk about the 5 things that can happen during the course of that disability insurance carrier's functional capacity evaluation. Let's take a quick break before we head into our next section.